Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Today is Wednesday, March 12th, and we got the CPI numbers today, and they were, as I expected, cooler than many anticipated. We came down from the January bump in inflation that we saw, and that's typical for January. The numbers for January tend to be kind of wonky because of the impact of holidays and the fact that those holidays tend to not that impact tends to not reflect the trend of where things are going. And so we got a cooler than expected CPI print this morning, and we got a strong reversal really in the markets to start off the morning, but then we were weighed down by additional tariff talks. And so it appears that even though inflation is, as a worry on its own, is subsiding somewhat, there is a bigger worry that is creeping up on the market. Now, if we look at the indices, well, first the VIX, and that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. The VIX got a well-needed relief here. That's the market's fear index. In response to the cooler than expected CPI print. So we're down more than 9% for our VIX reading today. We're still above 20, which is, if you compare with the last few years, is elevated, but we're headed in the right direction. And dollar index is up slightly. Russell is up close to 1 percentage point. The Dow Jones is up 0.3%. The S&P is up just shy of 1%. The Nasdaq is up 1.5%. So we did get some relief in the markets today on the heels of this cooler inflation print. If you look at something like Tesla, it got a really much needed bump, up more than 8% after the free infomercial that Trump provided Tesla with Elon Musk in front of the White House. Bitdeer is up 2%. Iris Energy is up close to 1%. Bitcoin is at 82,700. Doge is shy of 17 cents. Solana is at 124. Now, if we look at the map here of movers, we can see basically the market is green largely, with exception to some of the defensive areas in the market, utilities, the things that were green in previous days while the market is tanking, now red. So it does seem to be a big, the CPI numbers were a bit of a pick-me-up for the markets. The probability, despite today's numbers, the probability for a rate cut in May haven't really changed that much. If you compare the probability for a 25 basis point cut today, it's at 35%. That's for May, that is. 1 week ago, it was at close to 38%. So not much response to the inflation readout this morning. Now, the reason for that is because the market is waiting for bad economic news, because it's going to take some bad economic news for the argument to cut rates to really strengthen, to motivate investors to think, okay, now we're clearly going to get a cut. As it stands right now, what the inflation read today kind of helped ease a fear of is stagflation, so inflation and a recession. But what it did not eliminate is what is top of mind for many investors, many institutions, and that is the probability of a recession. So let's talk about that for a second. So we mentioned inflation, it hit 2.8% year over year. You can see here the solid blue line. It came down from the January read, and I do expect that it's going to come down further in the next reading if we are to take Trueflation's numbers by their word. And so Trueflation is actually showing inflation for March is lower than it was in February. And remember, I was looking at this metric to try and get a gauge of where today's reading would be at, and we got it right. So I do think that next month we'll probably get a cooler than expected inflation print if this trend continues. Again, we're at 1.32% as per Trueflation, which is lower than the Fed's target of 2%. But what is spooking investors now is Trump's talk about a transition period, a detox period that was said by the Treasury Secretary last week. Goldman Sachs raised its 12-month recession probability from 15% to 20%, noting that it sees Trump's announced period of transition as the key risk. So this is really weighing on investors' minds, and now more than the inflation worries. And JP Morgan actually sees a 40% chance of a US recession this year in 2025, and a risk to the exorbitant privilege that the US has enjoyed if the US is now viewed as a country with irrational and bad management. This is going to be a very off-putting for investors. The gains that US companies, US markets have experienced in previous years because of this privilege may be, may be risked if current administration continues with its completely, asinine policies. Sorry to get political there, but the tariffs are, I get. And some people have assigned some rationalization to them. So, one theory is that Trump wants to break the economy so that rates can come down, so that the $7 to $9 trillion that needs to be refinanced in the second half of this year can be refinanced at lower rates. Right now, rates are too high, and the interest bill is going to be too high. So what is needed is a crash of the economy in order for the rates to come down, and we can refinance our debt in the second half of the year, and then the economy will pick up and things will be fine. That's one theory here, but there really is very bad communication coming out from the administration with regards to what is the rationale for raising tariffs on uh, Canadian products 25, 50%. What's the rationale there? Who's going to lose their job? How many people are going to lose their job? Which industries are going to benefit? Which industries are going to suffer? There's no studies being put out about that. It's just completely, I think 25% is a good number. That's what we're going to go with. Same with Mexico, same with China. What's the rationale behind these tariff numbers? Have there been any studies done on exactly what the impact of this is going to be? There hasn't been. There's just been some wild tweets made by the president that seem to be just feeling based and not really science based. But my plan to deal with this is what I've been communicating to you for a while, what PIF members have been seeing me do, which is that I'm nibbling every day. I'm nibbling on the best, on the top names in our watch list. I'm buying and adding every single day. I'm not backing up the truck per se with huge buys, but I'm nibbling every day and making sure that I take advantage of the discounted prices in the market right now. My plan, obviously, and this is what I would advise is that number one, never invest what you need in the short term. Never use leverage, and focus on valuation. With an understanding that historically speaking, macro has always solved itself. And I don't think that this time will be any different. As I always say, the most dangerous words basically in investing is this time is different, because typically it's not really that different. It's similar to a previous time. So I understand that right now you may feel like, or you may hear a certain commentary that makes you feel like the sky is falling. But we've been here before many times. You don't have to go back in history that long. If you recall COVID and the panic that it caused at the time. Eventually, I think things will recover, and probably if one of the things that I think this administration is getting right is with regards to cutting costs and cutting spending that is being done by the federal government. And if we are able to, cut $1 trillion from the $2 trillion deficit that we are, or uh, $2 trillion of a budget that we're running, then and we are able to balance the budget, then I think that we're setting ourselves up for a really strong economy, a return of investor confidence, and even and we may get lower rates along the way to help us tide us through the path to get there. So I do think that this time, inshallah, will not be different. If we just focus on valuations, focus on what we have, what we can control, and that is making sure that we're picking the best companies, and we're not trying to time the market, and we're consistent in our approach, I think that's going to pay off very, very well. And really, investors are going to be rewarded not when they're doing what everyone else is doing, and not when they're doing the obvious thing, that and not when they're just following their emotions. Oftentimes the best return on your investment is going to come when you do something rational, despite uh, the fear that is in the market at the time. And so I think the rational thing right now is to continue dollar cost averaging into the best names on the market, and that's what we're doing. And then so long as you're not investing money that you need in the short term, and so long as you are not using leverage, you don't really need to check your portfolio that often. I know that when markets are in a panicked state, or perhaps not responding to good news like you would want it to respond to good news, then reducing the frequency of the times that you check your portfolio is going to increase the quality of your life. So I would highly recommend that. I would also highly recommend taking advantage of our Ramadan 2025 promotion, 35% off premium and elite plans. So you can see move for move what we're doing, what we're buying, and the target prices that we have for what we're buying. I think will pay off for itself many times over. And we have some members and member reviews that you can look at that prove that what I'm saying is inshallah going to be correct. So going to questions very quickly. Zuhair, assalamu alaikum, nice to see you. Assalamu alaikum, Kevin, nice to see you. I wanted to ask what you think about Islamic developed global markets, ACC. I think that probably needs its own standalone review. Amen. Let's not talk about individual positions. Ramadan Mubarak with all the hate that Tesla. Salam Lubnan, I see you. Ramadan Mubarak with all the hate that Tesla company is getting from the CEO, political involvement. Do you think Tesla stock is still a buy? Yeah, I do. It's a buy now, probably more than it has been in a while. Eventually, these news headlines are going to subside. The new administration is going to settle in, and investors are going to stop being spooked by every weird headline that comes out of the administration. They're going to kind of get used to it. So far, the tariffs haven't had much of an impact, and the administration has has shown a willingness, although not admittedly, but a willingness to roll back a lot of what it says. So I think Tesla is going to be fine, and in fact, I think Tesla's going to do very well over the next 12 to 18 months. All right, glad you enjoyed these lives, Midas. Do leave a like if you enjoy these lives. Some of you do. It's tough to say, Amir. With regards to Tesla, I think they're in a privileged position having such a large presence in China itself, so they don't really have to deal with tariffs. Assalamu alaikum, Cass. Hopefully, so the question is, do you see things settling down politically? Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the hope. There's been a ceasefire in Ukraine. That's great. Um, inshallah, they're able to reach an agreement, and that will be very good for, I think, markets. The level of nervousness there. That being said, if they reach an agreement that basically gives Russia everything it wants, we're just basically setting ourselves up for another bad thing to happen in the future. Because, whenever, injustice wins, it just ends up setting the world up for an even graver injustice um, in the future. So it's very important that the good side always wins. It's like I'll give you uh, an example that's close to home. So uh, there's the Hama massacre that happened in the 80s, and a rebellion was basically put down. Tens of thousands of civilians were killed in Syria, that is. And someone could argue, and it was argued in Syria, that this was, great because it saved a lot of lives that the rebellion stopped. And basically, that set the country up for another 30 years of oppression, and then 14 years of basically hell that it had to go through in order to finally get rid of the regime that they had. And I think that the 14 years of hell that they had to go through, that Syrian people had to go through, were set up by the initial win that the regime had in the 80s, which and so, in the case of Ukraine and Russia, you're talking about a country that unprovoked attacked another country, took over land from that country, and is now just by sheer force going to be able to hold on to that land that it took over unjustly. And so that's going to set up the world for something that's going to come after, that's going to be worse than this conflict. So people, idiots like the people saying, I have to say, Elon Musk has been quite the idiot on this topic. Trump as well. Just stop the killing. Just stop the killing. Well, every war can be ended immediately if one side just completely capitulates. The question is, well, on what terms is the war going to end? Is it going to end by, giving every person what they're rightfully due, or is it going to end by, appeasing the belligerent force? And apparently, with the end of this war, it seems like in the near term it might come with appeasing the belligerent force. That maybe opens up the path for China to take over Taiwan, maybe opens up the path for other countries to think about taking over land in other places. So, yeah, that's kind of how I see it. Okay. Another positive review for the timing of this live. Ibrahim, Salam, what is your opinion? If you signed up for if you signed, Cass, I see your comment. If you signed up for a membership during the promotion and didn't use it, I'll be able to take care of that for you. Ibrahim, what is your opinion on prop firms? Not the topic of this live. Shoaib, Sheikh, Salam, brother. Nice to see you. Salam, Dr. Boss. When do you decide to exit an entire position when it has reached euphoric levels? Yeah, it's either based on the price becoming overvalued. I no longer believe in the thesis. There's a better place to use my money. So I still have conviction, but I just have more conviction somewhere else. Or the position becomes uncomfortable for me from a halal perspective. Yeah, just dollar cost averaging is how I take advantage of, down moves. All right, guys. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Leave a like if you enjoyed this live. And until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.